Hello everyone, Darren from DrayTek Australia and New Zealand, and welcome to Wiley Technology's presentation on DrayTek VigorACS 3. This will be the first in a series of webinars where we'll look in detail at this centralized network management solution for DrayTek devices. We'll cover various topics to help you learn how to successfully install and configure various components to allow you to easily manage your customer networks. Today I'll start with an introduction to VigorACS 3 and look at the features listed here. Then I'll go through the installation process of the software. Over the next few months we'll look in more detail at various topics regarding VigorACS 3. These include adding devices and creating networks, user management and device monitoring, creating VPNs and monitoring, reporting, zero-touch deployment of CPE devices. CPE stands for Customer Premises Equipment. That's your routers and APs and so on. Network management, syslogs and notifications, and provisioning and maintenance. If you have any questions during the video, please comment in the chat box on the right side of the screen and stick around at the end for a 5-minute Q&A session. If you're watching this after the premiere, please comment below or send an email to sales@draytek.com.au. Okay, let's start by looking at what VigorACS 3 is. VigorACS 3 is a TR069 based centralized management system for DrayTek Vigor devices. It's the latest version of DrayTek's network management system, supporting all current DrayTek routers, access points and switches, providing an integrated platform for configuration, monitoring and management. It has a user-friendly interface, allowing system integrators or network administrators to configure, monitor and manage DrayTek devices remotely from the comfort of their offices or homes. VigorACS 3 is also the core of the DrayTek SD-WAN solution. It's subscription-based and license keys are available from 25 to 5,000 nodes. Some of the key features of VigorACS 3 are provisioning. This allows new devices to set themselves up and download the latest firmware. Real-time status monitoring, where you can get notified when a device loses its WAN, VPN or connection with the ACS server. Statistics with reports on client and traffic details over a specified period. The VPN Wizard allows you to easily create IPsec, L2TP or SSL VPN tunnels between managed devices with just a few clicks. Scheduled maintenance lets you schedule tasks such as firmware upgrades, configuration changes or device restarts at pre-configured time periods. Reports can also be generated to provide information on traffic, firmware versions, device status and more. SD-WAN and Centralised Hotspot portal are new features introduced in ACS. I'll talk more about these later. Bear in mind that some functions in VigorACS 3 are only supported in certain products. SD-WAN is supported in the latest dual and multi-WAN routers such as the Vigor 2865 and Vigor 2927 series. Similarly, the Hotspot feature is only supported in routers that also have the Hotspot feature. There's a complete list of devices that are supported on the DrayTek website at the link shown here. I'll include that link in the description below, along with a link to our Australian product page. One point to note is that all these devices must be running the latest firmware version to be managed by VigorACS 3. Okay, let's briefly look at how VigorACS 3 works. It often helps to understand the communication mechanism when troubleshooting an installation. VigorACS 3 utilises the TR069 standard for communication between the ACS server and the CPE devices. You can have any number of DrayTek devices on the internet that can be managed by the ACS server. What's TR069? TR069 is an application layer protocol for remote management of end-user devices. It was developed for automatic configuration of modems, routers, gateways, access points, etc. by using an auto-configuration server. There's several parameters required for communication between the ACS server and the CPE devices. These are ACS URL, this is the internet address of the ACS server. Periodic inform interval, this is the time period before the CPE device contacts the ACS server. Username and password, this is used to authenticate the CPE device on the ACS server. In the TR069 communication process, the connection between the CPE device and the ACS server is not permanent. The CPE device establishes the connection with the ACS server only at specific points in time determined by the periodic inform interval. It usually lasts several seconds, exchanging all necessary messages between the CPE and the ACS3 server. This short exchange of messages is called a provisioning session. A point to note is that the session can only be started by the CPE device. However, the ACS server can send a request to establish a connection that is a connection request, which makes the CPE device contact the ACS server. This connection request is used when changes in the configuration have to be deployed immediately. Instead of waiting for the CPE device to connect, the ACS server can inform the CPE in advance of a need to connect to the server and implement changes. Okay, let's now check out some of the main features in more detail. Before we get into it, we should note that the configuration and use of some of the features is dependent on the privilege level assigned to a user. There are 7 privilege levels, starting with System Administrator, which has the highest authority and has full control of the system. Below this we have Group Administrator, then Administrator. The commissioning privilege level allows the user to add a new network and view SD-WAN settings. Next down we have Operator, which you may want to give to someone to monitor ACS3 and make minor changes. The view-only operator, as the name suggests, can look and monitor but can't make any changes. The lowest level is Auditor, who is only permitted to view deleted logs. We'll be going over these roles in more detail in a future webinar where we go through user management and monitoring. Okay, let's start with the provisioning feature. The provisioning function allows users to set profiles to apply changes to numerous managed CPEs instead of configuring settings for each CPE individually. The provisioning task can also be carried out manually or according to a predefined time schedule. The provisioning menu is available only for the roles of System Administrator, Group Administrator, or Administrator. There's 4 provisioning options available. The first one is to provision using global parameters. This allows the configuration changes to be applied to all CPE devices. For example, you may want to set up an identical firewall rule to apply to all routers in an organization. This can be done simultaneously using ACS3. Next we have CPE set parameters. This is used where you may want to customize settings in a particular CPE. For example, you may want each site to have a unique SSID for their Wi-Fi networks. We should note that both global and CPE set parameters requires an XML file to be created with the required instructions. We'll be going through this in more detail in a future webinar, but today I'll just mention that this option is available. Another useful provisioning option is CPE keep parameters. This is handy when a user either accidentally or intentionally changes some settings in a CPE device. ACS3 will know that the change has been made and will restore the settings specified in the CPE keep parameters list. The last one on the list is firmware upgrade. The ACS server will check if the CPE model, name, firmware version and modem version, if applicable, corresponds to the information recorded in the VigorACS server. If the firmware version is different, VigorACS will flag the CPE as requiring a firmware upgrade. The ACS server will then carry out the upgrade automatically at the specified time. As mentioned previously, both global and CPE set parameters requires an XML file to be created with the required instructions. Here's a snippet of a sample XML file to give you an idea of what it looks like. In VigorACS 3, the process of creating this file has been simplified compared to what was required when using the older VigorACS SI software. We'll get into this in more detail in an upcoming webinar. The monitoring feature in VigorACS 3 will monitor for abnormal conditions on the network. It can also send a notification when a device loses its WAN, VPN or connection with the ACS server. Listed here are a number of items ACS 3 can monitor. You'll also find these in the monitoring menu in ACS 3 as shown in the screenshot on the right. It now includes monitoring of SD-WAN for WAN, VPN, VoIP and data usage. Here we have an example of cellular data usage to give you an idea of what type of information can be obtained. Once again, we'll be going into detail in this one in an upcoming webinar. The statistics feature shows client and traffic details over a specified time period for all devices listed under root networks. That includes usage overview, wireless clients overview, data traffic, device ranking and client ranking. By clicking last 24 hours, last 7 days, last 30 days, or specifying a custom start and end, the administrator can obtain various statistics within the time period. In the example shown here, we have the wireless activity over the last 24-hour period. It shows the number of clients at any one time, as well as the amount of traffic for each client. In addition, it provides an overview of the activity. The VPN Wizard provides an easy way to configure and build VPN connections between CPEs. The page shown here displays all the VPN connection statuses globally for the root network or the VPN connection status for the network group selected. The different colours for the arrows represent different protocols used in the VPN connections. For example, purple means network group, green means PPTP mode, blue means IPsec mode, and red means the VPN connection has failed. VigorACS 3 also has the Auto VPN feature in addition to the wizard. It allows you to set up two types of VPN topology. The first one is hub and spoke. Here you select one of the devices as a hub router, other devices will be regarded as spokes. ACS 3 will automatically create one IPsec tunnel with AES 256 encryption from each spoke to the hub router. If a subnet conflict occurs, the ACS server is capable of designing and suggesting LAN subnets for all devices. The next type of VPN topology is full mesh. This is where VPN tunnels are created between all CPEs to create a mesh topology. This will provide redundant paths to keep the network running in case one of the CPEs fails. Again, if a subnet conflict occurs, the ACS server is capable of designing and suggesting LAN subnets for all devices. Okay, we'll leave it at that for now, but we'll go into more detail about the VPN features in an upcoming webinar. Moving on to scheduled maintenance. VigorACS 3 allows maintenance tasks such as firmware updates, configuration changes, and device restarts to be carried out according to a time schedule. For example, you can schedule firmware upgrades to be carried out outside of business hours to minimize disruption to a business. In addition, you can also schedule regular CPE configuration backups to be done, so you'll always have the latest configuration file if you need to rebuild your network. Reporting is another feature available in VigorACS 3. Here, VigorACS will send reports to certain users periodically based on pre-configured report task profiles. The types of reports that can be generated include LAN statistics, traffic, firmware version for each CPE, and device status. Multiple report profiles can be created to generate different types of reports. The reports can either be manually downloaded or they can be automatically emailed to the relevant person. As you can see in the fifth column here, the reports can be scheduled to be done according to a time schedule, which could be daily, weekly, or immediately. And here we have a snippet of the LAN statistics report for a certain CPE. Okay, if you need more information, we'll be going into more detail on how to configure the profiles and generate the reports in a future webinar. SD-WAN. Software-Defined Wide Area Network, otherwise known as SD-WAN, is a feature that has been added to VigorACS 3. It's a virtual WAN architecture, allowing organisations to take advantage of any combination of transport services, for example fibre to the node or fibre to the basement, hybrid fibre coaxial, LTE and even MPLS internet services to securely connect customers to their applications. It uses a centralized control function to securely and intelligently direct traffic across the WAN, including the use of VPNs. There's a number of components that make up the SD-WAN feature in ACS 3. These are monitoring of interface quality, VoIP optimization and monitoring, application visibility, and also application-based route policy. The SD-WAN dashboard monitors latency, loss and jitter of every WAN and VPN interface. It measures for quality and it gives it a mean opinion score, abbreviated to MOS or MOS. This helps the network administrator to see the past and present reliability of all interfaces at a glance. The MOS compliancy is given as a percentage and indicates the reliability of the connections. Ideally, they should always be higher than the target MOS threshold. For each interface on the CPEs, data usage, latency, jitter and packet loss are recorded and displayed in graphical format. This will help the network administrator to spot anything unusual at a glance and then take steps to investigate further. SD-WAN also provides VoIP optimization. Here every VoIP call is monitored and assigned to the best quality WAN interface. The MOS, mean opinion score, is used to work out which WAN interface to use. So in the diagram shown here, WAN 1 has a MOS of 4.3, which is higher than the other WAN interfaces, so it is selected for the VoIP call. We should note that this optimization will only work when a multi-WAN router is being used, otherwise there will be no alternative WAN connection to select for the VoIP call. VoIP optimization also includes VoIP live failover. Here, SD-WAN continuously monitors each live call and fails over to the secondary VoIP WAN if poor call quality conditions are met. The VoIP call is not interrupted during this process. Also, each call is logged with a MOS and recorded in a chart as shown here, which the network administrator can monitor. The application visibility feature lets network administrators understand data usage. It shows which LAN clients and applications are used at a particular time. Based on the application visibility, network administrators can create SD-WAN policies to send business-critical applications through the best quality interface. It also allows the network administrator to specify the desired route for selected applications or domains. In addition, there's a failover option to use a secondary WAN connection should the primary WAN fail for some reason. Application-based route policy also allows full control of NAT and routing. Match sessions can be NATed or routed depending on the requirements. This is especially useful if you have a private or MPLS WAN which requires being routed and direct internet access which requires being NATed at the same time. An example is we can create policies for different destinations for VoIP. So a VoIP call using SIP or RTP from an IP phone in a branch office to another IP phone at HQ is routed via an MPLS WAN, but when the same phone is used to place a call to an internet destination, the call is NATed via the second WAN. The final feature we'll look at today is the Centralised Hotspot portal. There are two modes that can be set up. The first is the distributed hotspot server, where each router is a hotspot server. This is suitable for a small business with a single or a few locations. This one has the lowest cost. The next mode is the Centralised Hotspot server, where all routers redirect hotspot queries to the central server. This is suitable for small to medium-sized businesses with several locations. This has a higher cost to run. Here we have an illustration of the two modes. On the left we have the distributed hotspot server, where each router is a hotspot server, and on the right we have the centralized hotspot server, where all the routers redirect hotspot queries to the central server. Keep in mind that SD-WAN is currently only supported on the router models listed here. You'll find this list on our website at the URL down the bottom there, which I'll include in the description below. It's updated as new models are added, so be sure to check it rather than relying on what I'm showing you here right now, especially if this video is more than a few months old. Note that when enabling SD-WAN on a device, it will count as an extra node for ACS3. So for example, if you have a VigorACS router, it counts as one node for ACS3, but if SD-WAN is enabled, it will add an extra node to the node count. In this case, the count with SD-WAN enabled will count as two nodes for the one device, so keep that in mind when ordering to ensure you purchase a license key which will meet your requirements. We'll now move on to our final topic for today, which is VigorACS3 installation. Before installing VigorACS3, you'll need to consider the hardware requirements. ACS3 is available for both Windows and Linux, and the details shown here are the minimum requirements, but will vary depending on the number of nodes to be managed. For the client, any PC running a web browser will be sufficient. Here we have the recommended hardware to use for the ACS3 server based on the number of nodes to be managed. More details are available on our website at the link shown here. Instructions to guide you through the installation process are available in the knowledge base at the link shown here. In addition, if you're currently running VigorACS2, you can upgrade it to VigorACS3 at no additional cost. However, once you upgrade to VigorACS3, you won't be able to revert to the previous version. It's recommended to first make a backup of the database before upgrading the software as well. We have a couple of videos on our YouTube channel you can watch which will guide you through the installation process. We have a Windows version as well as a Linux version. I'll include those links below so you can watch them again later, but I'll show you the Windows installation video now. It goes for just over 9 minutes.
Hello everybody, my name is Havilyu and I work for DrayTek Australia. Today I will go through the installation process of VigorACS3 on a Windows platform. First, let's have a brief look at the initial hardware requirement. A standard 64-bit Windows such as Windows 10, an i7 2-core processor and an 8GB RAM would be a good start. Now this page is provided by DrayTek. You can see the link on the top. It shows the various scenarios with varying recommended hardware requirements. Note that the suggested hard disk space is greatly dependent on the amount of syslog you intend to collect as you go along, but as a start, 100 GB is largely sufficient, even if 1 TB is recommended. Also, note that after 5,000 nodes, then Linux is a recommended platform. Here we have a list of steps that we will follow for the ACS3 installation. We will start with installing Java runtime and then open JDK, followed by WinPcap for internal Wireshark facility and the MariaDB free database before running the ACS3 package itself. It may take anything between 5 to 15 minutes depending on the capacity of your computer. We will then activate the trial license for my Vigor website and finally show you how to add a paid license after your 30 days trial. So we now start with a very important step, and the Java runtime is not provided with the ACS3 zip package. So we'll download it from the internet and then install it. We then proceed with the Java Open JDK package, which is supplied with the ACS3 installation file. And then the MariaDB database, which is also a package. Make sure that the database root password does not contain too many special characters. There have been cases where complex characters were not recognized, and the typical symptom is that the validation field does not appear when logging for the first time. So we enter the root password and confirm it, and then use the default options offered. The database installation is now going smoothly, and we'll let it finish. The database has finished installing. Then we move to the Wireshark patch. And finally, we proceed with ACS3 installation exe5. We immediately get a reminder telling us to have Java runtime installed, which we already have. We then either use MariaDB database just created, or if you have your own, just select it before proceeding. Then we will be prompted to either make a new installation or an upgrade from the previous version. We then have to type the root password, which we have used while installing the MariaDB previously. Remember to click on Check Password. This helps to check if the database is accessible. We then click Next to follow the defaults. We now get a reminder that if we're upgrading from an older version of ACS, which we are not, we then are required to set the maximum and minimum memory requirements. We choose the default value. Please modify if you wish. Here we will use the same port number for the VigorACS portal and the CPU communication. We now need to set the HTTP and HTTPS ports. The defaults are 80 and 443, but feel free to change them if you wish. We will use the defaults as usual in this demo. We will continue to use default settings for the rest of the installation. Here we have an option to give access to the ACS3 server through the firewall, which we will accept. And finally, we click Install to start the installation of the package. The process will take from 5 to 15 minutes depending on the capacity of your machine, and it has been accelerated in this demo for your comfort. You can now see a lot of black pop-up screen appearing, because that's a server log being displayed, and it's too fast to read. Now the installation is completed. You can launch the browser by typing localhost port LAN IP and a port number if necessary. We will use the default login credentials, which is root and password admin123, and type the validation code when it's ready. This is an additional security measure against bots. You may click on the validation code twice to refresh it. You will then be required to activate the 30 days trial license. You may use your MyVigor account or apply to have a free account now and proceed. Just add the name for the ACS free server and choose between upgrade from ACS2 to ACS3. Just activate license if a new installation. We selected activate, go through the license condition and accept. The screen shows us if it's a trial license with an expiry date. We then click on activate and it shows us again the confirmation of the license. We click on login to ACS and go back to the ACS3 login. We log in again using root admin123 and the validation code. A pop-up will confirm expiry date of the license again. Here ACS3 will request you to change the root login for security reasons. Now we type the new root password and now we confirm it again. And then we click Save. Click on the License Information tab to get the ACS host ID, which is very important to keep, and the number of nodes purchased and used as well. On the same tab, you will get the versions of the ACS3. Here you can see the version 3.1.1. Now we will go to the User Management tab, where we can modify the root password and also add new users. You can see how you can change the password and the role, etc. Now there is another place where you can also change the user password or even enable the two-factor authentication feature for that user. We will now show you some troubleshooting steps if you encounter any issues during the installation. Just locate the server log and do searches on words such as error or fail, and the log will display any lines related to them and hence give you important tips where the errors might come from. Finally, I will show you how to activate your license after a 30 days free trial period. You just go to the License Information tab and click here to activate license. You will be directed to the MyVigor webpage and you will get an option on either upgrade license from ACS2 to ACS3 or renew the license. We will renew the license now and enter the 20-character license key. This concludes the demo on ACS for installation on a Windows platform.
Okay, so to summarise, today we started by looking at what VigorACS 3 is, then we described how it works using the TR069 protocol. We also looked at the main features of ACS 3 listed here, which include provisioning, monitoring, statistics, VPN Wizard, scheduled maintenance, reports, SD-WAN and Centralised Hotspot portal. We concluded by looking at the installation of VigorACS 3, which included a video demo. As noted earlier, today's presentation is the first in a series of webinars covering different aspects of VigorACS 3, so I hope you'll return to watch the upcoming webinars. Okay, that's all for now, but please stay tuned. If you have any questions, staff will be available in the live chat on the right of your screen for the next 5 minutes. For more information about DrayTek products, please visit our website at www.draytek.com.au or send us an email to sales@draytek.com.au or give us a call on 02 9838 8899. Please like and subscribe below, and if you'd like a notification anytime we put up a new video, please give the bell a click too. Thanks and bye for now.